Today we're making hot air balloons, and it's real easy to do. Welcome to Mr. News Art class. It's wonderful to see your smiling faces today. We're going to start here with a Sharpie, and we're going to point right in the middle of our paper. Not the top or the side or the bottom or the corner or the middle. Right in the middle. Right there in the middle, we're going to make a little line. That's going to be the bottom of our balloon. Next, we're going to point at the top of our paper. Not the middle, not the bottom, or the corner, or the side, the top. And we're going to make another little line almost touching the top of the page. That's going to be the top of our balloon. Next, we're going to connect the top to the bottom of the balloon. And notice that I've made it wider at the top of the balloon and a little narrower as it gets to the bottom of the balloon. That gives it a characteristic balloon shape. Next, from the top to the bottom of our balloon, we're going to make a couple of lines. The one in the middle is straight up and down, and then we're going to kind of curve on the two sides. It's going to follow along the edge, the sort of the curvature of the outside of the balloon, like that. It's the same as the outside of the balloon. And so those are the lines between the different segments of the balloons. We also need some lines that crisscross horizontally. And we're going to curve those. We don't want them to be perfectly straight. And that'll make the different sections of the balloon. There, the balloon is done. Now, in the middle of the bottom half, between the bottom of the balloon and the bottom of the page, right here, we're going to make a little square. This should be the same width as the bottom of the balloon. This is the basket that people would be standing in. And right in the middle of it, we're going to make a circle. And we want that same circle on the side, but it's just going to be half the circle over here and half the circle over here. So a circle in the middle, and it's going to have a little bumpy shape on top. This is a sandbag, and we want half of that bumpy shape up here and half of that bumpy shape up here. So there we've got our sandbags, and we're going to tie our rope around them, like that. And the next step is going to be the ropes that connect from the basket to the balloon. We're going to do 3 lines, one on the left side, one in the middle, and one on the right. And we're done with our balloon here. And in the empty space around here, we're going to make some clouds. There's really no wrong way to make the clouds, but I like to make them flatter along the bottom. Bumpier on the top and flatter on the bottom. Now, we've also still got some space up here, so maybe a couple extra little balloons that are smaller and farther away. You could even do some overlapping and have one behind the balloon if you want. And I have 2 examples here because I'm going to show you 2 different ways to paint them. Here I have tempera paints that are in little tubs, little condiment cups, and you notice that I have cut little holes in the lids so that I can stick the paintbrush down into the cup without having to take the lid off. So that's just a trick I use in my art classes when I teach art on a cart. And so what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to use warm colors, reds, oranges, yellows, and pinks in the balloon. And that's kind of funny because it makes it a hot air balloon with hot colors. That's a funny joke if you're an artist. But anyway, I'm just kind of painting around with these colors in the balloon itself. And with this particular painting, I'm going to use hot colors in the foreground and cool colors for the sky. But notice that I have a cup of water here. Every time I switch colors, I do want to clean my brush really well. And you notice that I've still got some stuff on the brush, so I need to wipe it with the paper towel too. And also because these are tempera paints, it's important that they're dry. The paints themselves are wet, so I don't want a wet brush. It's not like I'm using watercolor paints. Anyway, I think you already know how to use paint, so I'm just gonna skip ahead to where this is pretty much finished. Well, at least the air balloon is finished. I still need to paint the sky, but I want to show you a second way to paint it, and that it would be to paint the background with hot colors instead of the foreground. So, in this picture, I'm going to paint the sky like it's a sunset. Notice how I'm starting in this space in between the balloon and the basket. And notice how I'm using horizontal slashes with my color, side to side, always side to side. And notice how I'm letting the sky get darker as it moves up. So I've transitioned from an orange to a red. But notice how I'm blending those colors right here on my paper with these sideways motions back and forth. And I'm washing my brush so that I don't mix the paints when I go back to get more paint. And at the bottom, I'm mixing a lighter color. Here I've got a yellow. And even though that orange paint was already kind of dry, the wet of the yellow paint will help to mix them together. But notice that the sky is lightest at the bottom and it gets darker as it goes up. And I blend between my colors. I don't want it to just be yellow, then orange, then red. Again, washing my brush between colors so that I don't get things mixed up. And as I finish up the sky on this one, I want to remember that there are two paintings here, and one of them I used hot colors on the balloon, and on the second one I used hot colors in the sky. Hot and cool colors interact in an interesting way. Let me switch back to this one and show you how we're going to see those colors really impact each other when we have cool colors in the mix. Notice that I am still using, in the sky, just like I did last time, lightest at the bottom, working my way darker as I go up. So I've got like the light blue, now I'm doing dark blue, and I'll do purple at the top. But notice how those blues really interact with the warm reds. Blues and purples and greens are cool colors, and they kind of recede and fall back into the background away from us. And warm colors are, the reds and the oranges and the pinks and yellows, and they kind of rise to the foreground. And that doesn't mean you always have to use warm colors in the foreground and cool colors in the background. It just means they have an interesting contrast between them. So here, now that this one is finished, I'll go back to my first one and fill the balloon itself with the cool colors, the foreground with the cool colors. Let's see how that works. Notice how no matter which way you do it, the cool colors and the warm colors stand out against each other. Whether you put the cool colors in front and the warm colors behind them, or the other way where you put the warm colors in front and the cool colors behind them. Either way, they really stand out against each other. That's high contrast. And now that the paint is dry, I see that these lines for the ropes are kind of disappearing, so I'm going back in here with a Sharpie right on top of the dry paint. You don't want to do this while the paint is wet, but once the paint is dry, you can darken those lines back up with a Sharpie. And you're done.